Even though we are aware of prophecy's existence, it remains a difficult idea to grasp due to the lack of a clear definition of what it is and how it operates. And yet, nebulous and unfathomable as it might be, we really aren't totally in the dark. Curious minds have always been drawn to what lies ahead because of our insatiable curiosity or our irrational dread of the unknowable. Man has spent millennia laboriously trying to decipher the Bible's prophecies. The Church's rapture will be the next major event regarding God's prophetic calendar. Until certain prophecies are achieved, the rapture cannot take place. It's getting close. It might occur at any moment. Only the boundless patience and mercy of God can prevent it. In this video, we'll be discussing the recent ceremony that was held for the Third Temple, the collapse of the last Jewish temple. The Jerusalem Islamic Authority, known as the Waqf, frequently covers over or eliminates any trace of the First and Second Holy Temples to disprove Jewish rights to the Temple Mount. Those in charge of managing the site, known as the Waqf, have dug up and buried valuable items from the historic Beit HaMikdash in a common local landfill with complete disregard for the destruction of these artifacts, which dates back at least centuries. Since 1967, when Israeli authorities handed over authority to the Waqf and Israeli police have worked together to prevent Jews and Christians from praying or even visiting the Temple Mount. Despite the Israeli government permitting the police to implement this unfair policy, Jews nevertheless pray daily. May it be your will that the temple is speedily rebuilt in our own time. Since the Roman army Titus demolished the Second Temple in Jerusalem in AD 70, they had done so continuously. Several groups in the last few years have begun combining their religious beliefs with their work worldwide. A temple in waiting, as stated by Chaim Richard, head of the Temple Academy in Jerusalem, whose offices are near the Western Wall in the Old City. As per Richman, the Temple Institute is doing extensive planning and study for the restoration of the Holy Temple, including drawing up functional designs for the temple's development in accordance with the most up-to-date standards. The Institute has so far developed more than 60 precious temple vessels necessary for prayer in the soon-to-be rebuilt temple. Also prepared is the Levitical choir's equipment and the high priest's breastplate, which is set with the 12 precious gems representing the 12 Israeli tribes. The Institute also made the priestly garb. They will be worn by the next generation of Levitical priests or Kohanim who are currently in training. Aaronic ancestry, a link to the past. Kohen, which means priest, is an appellation for Aaron, a Levite and his offspring. Therefore, Jews who trace their genealogy back to the clan of Levi and are heirs of Aaron, Moses' brother, are qualified to serve as Levitical priests. Kohen is a prevalent Jewish surname nowadays, and it may suggest a kinship with the house of Aaron. Those Levites who weren't directly descended from Aaron are responsible for maintaining the temple and its contents, while the Kohanim were in the head of sacrifices. It has been nearly 95 years since a British periodical claimed that Jerusalem's chief Rabbi Kook had founded Torat Kohanim, a school specifically to prepare Levites to service in a restored temple. It was stated that students of Kook's school took part in temple sacrifices just as those performed in the First and Second Temples. Priestly Training Academy for the Third Temple. Following the precedent set by Chief Rabbi Kook, the Temple Institute and the Third Temple Academy have begun making measures for the Third Temple in the hopes that God will quickly fulfill his predictions regarding the temple. To train Kohanim or priests and Levites for their roles near the Third Temple, a field school was set up in Mizpeh Jericho in 2009. The Dead Sea was combed in 2010 for unhewn stones to create the temple altar. Stones in such perfect condition are thought to adhere to the rule that they cannot have been worked on with metal. Mizpeh Jericho, where the Third Temple Academy is located, is roughly a 20-minute drive from Jerusalem, along the way to Jericho and the Jordan Valley. In August of 2013, a special evening was made aside for the school's official opening, during which a pre-show of the entire day's service was held. Attendees, some of whom wore full priestly regalia, performed the ritual by the Torah, the Mishnah, and other rabbinic teachings, purification rituals for the Third Temple. Even though the receptacles for the temple have been made and the priests are in preparation, there are still major problems that must be addressed before the building of a new temple can commence. The command to utilize a red heifer to cleanse the altar is now incomplete due to the absence of a ritualistically pure red heifer. Such models should not have so much as a scar or hair of a different hue. A red heifer from New Jersey that had a black calf this year joined the ranks of previously disqualified red heifers. The cow is no longer eligible after she gives birth. The Temple Institute has started a special red heifer genetic line, which entails implanting stored red Angus eggs into native Israeli cattle rather than randomly waiting for one to arise in a herd anywhere on Earth. Crowdfunding efforts are currently in progress to make this possible. Roughly $31,000 has been collected thus far, establishing the Third Temple's foundation. Because of the biblical prohibition against using tools and weapons in the creation of the temple, a Tower of Harmony, a group named the Temple Mount Faithful, directed by Gershon Salomon, has adequately planned the stones for a new temple using diamonds rather than metal tools. 6-ton stones were cleansed by dipping them in water from the biblical Siloam pool. Salomon and his supporters have been trying to set these cornerstones on the Temple Mount for a number of years, but each time Israeli authorities have prevented them. Salomon added, "Unfortunately, weakness of the Israeli government did not allow us to carry the cornerstones to the correct spot." He noted that the temple must be reconstructed on the Temple Mount. The third temple will be constructed on the site of the previous two. Of course, that highlights the central issue. The holiest place in Judaism is the third holiest in Islam, after Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia. The Mosque of Omar, also known as the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, which is coated in gold and is said to contain the stone from which Muhammad, SAW, is said to have gone to paradise, are both currently located on the Temple Mount. Jewish efforts to construct the third temple on the Temple Mount appeared doomed in light of the Muslim claim to the land. Kohanim are also prepared to carry out the regular temple services, such as the Tamid service conducted daily in the Holy Temple. Observance of the Third Temple. A week ago in Jerusalem, hundreds of people led by Kohanim in priesthood costume and supported by Levites played stringed instruments, reenacted the water libation as it had been conducted in the temple. At the event's start in Jerusalem's Old City's Shah Hashbot, attendees met Kohanim in biblically prescribed gowns and Levites with instruments, all of whom were likewise dressed in unique garments. Skilled Levites played musical instruments and directed the event, which ended in the area underneath the Temple Mount. The pilgrims paraded past an Arab town and the historic site of the ancient city of David, before arriving at the Shiloh Spring, which the temple utilized. A miniature altar and implements were displayed in the grassy space next to the western wall. As was the custom at the temple, big willow stems with plenty of leaves were used to adorn the altar. After the priestly benediction, the once every 7 years Hakel ritual was performed. Water libation is a component of the oral culture handed down from Moses, but the Torah does not require it. The water libation was the highlight of the festive Sukkot celebration. The temple ritual would run for 15 hours, with celebrations continuing through the night and the next day. The Sukkot celebrations were worldwide in nature, with people from all over the world gathering to worship God. During the final 6 days of the week-long Sukkot vacation, a libation of water was made in conjunction with the spilling out of wine and the Sunday service. The Kohanim left the temple and went to the Shiloh Spring at the foot of Mount Moriah, where they loaded the flask with 3 logs of spring water and then proceeded to the temple. Then 2 Kohanim climbed the stone altar in the temple's central courtyard and set 2 silver cups in the area to the southwest. The water from the metal flask and the wine from the second cup were poured into holes in the altar, set aside for the ritual at the same time. So in this way, the ceremony was conducted. That's all for this video. Leave your thoughts on the development of the Third Temple. Also take a minute out and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned, see you soon.